Hello. The days of early YouTube tutorial videos. Okay, so we left off last week. I reprinted the out-of-date XY joint, swapped that out. I ended up cutting my new back beam. So now we are going to finish putting the gantry together and hopefully get it installed in the frame, which is back there. In the meantime, my microphone did come in. So now audio quality should be a bit better now because it's an actual microphone and not the webcam. So if you have any issues with the audio levels, just let me know. I'm still tweaking everything. Am I dropping frames? Doesn't say I'm dropping frames. Let's see here. There we go. Let me try that. Is that any better for the audio? One second here. See, the problem is I'm not even listening to my own stream. I don't seem to be... Yeah, I'm not seeing it on my end here. So... Yeah, I'm not seeing it on my end. I think it is on your end, lol. Huh. Hey, Leo. Yeah, I'm loving my 3700X there, lol. It's a good CPU. Guten Tag, Stefan. I think that right. I don't know. No Specke die Deutsch. So right now I'm just installing the back beam and getting the rest of the gantry together. You're welcome, VAV. And if anyone wants to listen along, as usual, I'm listening to lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax to or whatever it is, but I can't type it into the stream, otherwise I get hit with a million copyright notices. So just open that in the background if you want to listen along. So right now, installing this back beam, I am leaving everything a little bit loose because nothing's squared up yet. So I'll tighten everything down later. I really need to get some wireless headphones. This thing keeps getting caught on everything. So, let's take a look here. So, for attaching the X beam, the XY joints, $14 mil, so 16 mil M3s. Now, obviously, on the one side we have our end stops. Blah. There we go. Hit the mic button. Again, if you didn't watch my recent video, I made a little stream deck here. So, getting used to that, but it is much handier. So anyways, 16 mil. I'm using 16 mil screws all around because I'm lazy and I'll swap them later. But for the silver versus black extrusions, black is Masumi, the silver is China Special. The reason is, when I originally purchased all the items from Masumi to upgrade the Tallboy, frames back here, into a V2, that was for 2.2. So for 2.2, the rear back brace here was shorter. So now that I swapped it to a 2.4, when I did it for this guy, I took the beam out of here and chopped it down to use for this guy because it was long enough. You can't grow extrusions, so I didn't have a black one on hand, so I just used this one that I had kicking around. For Masumi in Canada, I would pretty much, the cost isn't that bad. We pretty much pay the exchange rate, which that it is what it is. It's the fact that it's a minimum $30 shipping charge no matter what. So even if it's like a $4 extrusion, it's going to be a $34 extrusion plus exchange rate plus tax. So yeah. So there we go. That's why it's a silverback. That's some good tea. Okay, where were we at? 16 mil. And yes, if I ever cut out the audio, let me know. Yes. What color am I using for the accents, Mike? This is blue eSun ABS Plus. Okay, I gotta loosen these back ones up a bit. They're a little too narrow, so my frame's already not straight. Should I scale my parts if I'm using eSun ABS Plus? All Voron parts are designed to be printed in ABS or ABS Plus, essentially. So everything is already scaled for printing with ABS. Doesn't matter what kind of ABS, really. So you shouldn't be scaling any parts. If you're scaling parts, you're going to probably throw off some critical dimensions, because there are quite a few parts in here that do have tight fit. So you really don't want to be scaling your Voron parts. They're already pre-sized. I got some M12s in my M16s. There we go. Yes, I'm pretty sure we included it with the 2.4 download package of STLs, but there are some test parts in there. There's the cubes, some threaded parts, some parts where you got to fit a bearing into. Those are very good test parts. It's actually funny because the 2.4 doesn't use any threaded parts that thread into each other or any press fit bearings anymore. We've eliminated that, but they're still good parts for testing the accuracy of your printer. So what I would recommend for 2.4 for a test piece is, let me find it here. Is it? There's a few parts. The front idlers for your gantry, part of the afterburner. There's a few parts that have parts that are printed that index into other parts. Those would be good parts to print first, just to ensure that your dimensions in your printer is printing things accurately, because there are portions that snap into, same with the AB motors. The two halves snap into each other. So making sure those snap together correctly would be a good test. Okay. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm taking my gantry, my X-gantry, sliding it all the way back, and then I'm going to tighten up my rear beam here. I'm not exactly sure how the order of operations is in the manual, because I've always built these before the manual comes out, but I've done it this way in the past and it's worked. But if the manual says do something different, follow the manual. Usually I end up, once the gantry's installed, I end up having to loosen a few screws to make sure everything's aligned right. You don't want racking. Renato asking, do I have any other printer besides a Voron? I started on the Monoprice Select Mini. That was my very first printer. And I outgrew that thing within about a month. And I built a big Voron V1, way too big. And that's why I have a smaller V2. At the moment, I do have this i3 that I am working on. I just need to wire up the electronics, basically. But this is all built with spare parts I had kicking around from building Vorons. Okay, Keith asked, do you typically do any finishing on your parts, sanding, etc. for aesthetics or fit? For fit, every now and then, I tend to over smush my first layer. So I sometimes get that little, bit of flashing around the outside of the bottom of the part, and that's just from habit. I'd rather it be a little smushed than risk a warp 12 hours into a print. So at most, I might take, an X-Acto knife and just go around and just trim it. But I don't sand, or some people vapor smooth parts, don't do that. But I don't really do any prep work other than, cleaning up any little bit of flash. Okay. So that is our gantry. So now what I'm going to install, we are going to install our Z mounts here. This mounts the gantry to the rail carriages. So we're going to install those now. Good old T. 4. There we go. Okay. Perfect. So, for everyone following along at home, if you are using the Hall Effect end stop, one of these blocks will have a little hole in it you need to print out. This is for your little 3x6mm magnet. So make sure you print one of those, because standard they don't come with the hole. And if you do that, then you'll be gluing a magnet to it until you can get the printer up and running and printing the right one. Ask me how I know. Yes, Keith, deburring tool is good. I have one in my toolbox at work. I never remember to bring it home, so I just use an X-Acto knife. A file does the same thing. But for finishing up parts, that's really the only thing you should have to do. Some parts, if you know, what I usually do, I went over this in a previous video, but anytime I have two parts that mate together, I will take, like, I have a bastard file. I'll just quickly run the file across, and that's just because I run Z-hops, so sometimes you get those little nubbins or a little bit of string at the top. That just knocks it flat, just so they sit together flush. Okay. So let's see what we got here. Inspect. No, that's not what I want. There we go. Where is the section? There we go. Don't freeze on me. Come on. There it is. I don't know what it is with section tools, but they're always a pain in the butt. There we go. You mentioned work. If I may ask, what do you do for a living? I work at a tool shop that builds plastic injection molds. So anyone, somebody complains about smelling ABS, I don't even smell ABS anymore. I forgot to turn this back on. Boop. There we go. Okay. No problem, Yuhan. Okay. Make sure I got these orientated. Yeah. Oh, I have a gate. 1 second here. There we go. Mr. Pure Basic, that should fix it there. Again, this is the first time I'm using a mic setup. I'm using voice meter here. So I just watched the quick 5-minute tutorial video on how to use it and then went live. So when you are installing these little blocks here, you will see they have a little notch that has to face out, and that's clearance for your carriage. And then what I am going to do is at this point, because I have my belts pre-cut, I'm going to install my belts now, because I already have them made. So this way I can install and assemble this whole bottom portion and it's already installed, so I can put this into my frame and then bolt it to the carriages. Jeff A, it is I threw the box out. It's a Marantz Pro Pack 1. So it's a kit. It comes with the mic. It comes with the boom, USB. So it's not a condenser mic. All the cheap XLR interfaces are ridiculously overpriced or out of stock right now. It's why you're still seeing shitty Microsoft LifeCam O Vision here. I would love to get another C920, but good luck right now trying to get one of those. Okay. So I know last week we were out, but I did put the mask on and head to Lowe's, so I do have some actual M5 nuts, proper ones now. So these pieces, get an M5 nut in the bottom before you attach them to your gantry. Yeah, the one I'm using now, I purchased it a while ago. I was going to use it for this V2 actually, and I ended up not doing it because, again, printer ain't built yet. But yeah, I paid like $50 Canadian for it, which, considering it is a 8-year-old webcam at this point. So I'm doing my little trick here where I put super glue on these guys before putting them in, just a little dab so they're not going all over the place. Still have a glitch sound-wise. What is the glitch? Like, is it cutting out, or is it like a lag thing, or? Yeah, Mr. Pierce, somebody else was saying I was cutting out every couple of seconds. Try refreshing the stream. See if that fixes it, because I was listening to myself earlier and I wasn't hearing any issues that Buddy previously had said were happening. So yeah, I would just try restarting the stream, see if that helps. There we go. Yeah, even online, like I was looking, I watched a few YouTube videos on, how to be a pro Fortnite YouTube streamer on Twitch or whatever. And they're like, oh, just buy these cameras, and you look online, and even those are ridiculously overpriced and out of stock. Yeah, because according to OBS here, I'm not dropping any frames. Everything seems to be good. Let's see here. Yeah, everything. I don't know what the issue is. Let me try bumping up the audio bitrate here. Audio. I can't bump it up, I don't think. Yeah, I can't bump it up once the stream starts, unfortunately. 1 second here. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, because when I'm hearing myself, like watching the YouTube stream, I'm not hearing any cutout. So something's weird. Let's see. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm hearing it there. Let's see here. Yeah. That's something to look at for the next one. Yeah, it's... If you saw my my computer setup for this, it's a little jank. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'm having like some very minor internet cutout or something. Because I totally am not running this off a 10-year-old computer and using a $10 USB dongle for connecting to the internet. No. Yes. Yeah, Mr. Pierre, frame rates are fine. It's 30 frames per second, NVENC encoding. Everything's locked in there, 3,000 kilobits a second. It might be the audio, though. Trying to remember what size screws I got to use here. Yep, auto ones. Okay, so time to make a sandwich. Okay, so yeah, YouTube's saying I should bump it up, but I can't do that while the stream's running. Let me see here. Hopefully this doesn't cut out. Screen might go black for a minute here. Yeah, I don't know. All I know is I'm getting a pretty bad, yeah, it's like a 30-second delay between what I see live and what's showing up on YouTube. I don't know. So, oh well. Okay, so we're going to make this sandwich. So we have our front idler installed here. So we're going to have front idler, your belt, tooth side in, feeding in towards the print volume area. You're going to take your accent belt holder piece, put that on top. You're going to take one of your little pivot block sections. And on the front here, again, make sure you're using whatever one you are, whichever one has a little hole. If you are using the Hall effect end stop, you put that one in the right spot. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about it. Put your screw in. Yeah, grab the right one. So it's M530. Yeah, I'm still learning all this streaming stuff. There we go. So you have an M5 30 mil and then an M3 30 mil. And that clamps your belt in. There we go. And now we mount the other part of the pivot block, and this is the part that attaches to your carriage. There we go. So what I do is before I put them in, I just basically rub them against each other. And the reason for that is I'm just making sure there are no little burrs or anything. Now one trick you can do, because these are pivot points, they don't really pivot much, but it is technically a pivot point. A little bit of super lube. You don't really have to do this. I'm just basically wetting it the faintest amount. Now if I'm not mistaken, it's an M5 40 mil for this guy. Go. And you just leave it a little bit loose for now, tighten it up later. So now we can install the back ones. Okay, can I use a Duet 2 to build a Voron 2.4 control? I'm assuming you mean control using it as a controller. This guy has a Duet 2 in it. So yes, you can run Duet on a Voron. It's just not stock because there's really no advantage to using a Duet when you Clipper is just so much cheaper. Dual SKRs and an RPI 3 and you're good. So you have a solution that's cheaper than a one Duet 2, and then you need a Duet 2 plus a Duex. Okay. Now we do the back ones. Dropping everything tonight. But yeah, in my opinion, with a duet, if you already have one and you want to use it, go ahead, use it. But I would not personally go buy one for a Voron. Like the only reason this guy back here, 26, uses a duet is because when I built it at the time, there really was no other option other than using a ramps with some hacked Marlin code and an expander, or Duet 2. There really was no other option for controlling 7 drivers at the same time that was economical. So now we are installing the one. Let's see here. So this back corner here, this is the one that gets your magnet if you are running with the Hall effect and stop. Okay, what about the SKR 1.4 Turbo? That works fine. The SKR 1.3 was spec for a while because we knew it worked. With the 4 being out, I think they changed some things around that you don't get any advantage with Voron. Same with Turbo, you don't need the Turbo one. The extra couple megahertz of processing power don't do anything because the Raspberry Pi is doing all the calculations. The MCU is just following the instructions. If a ramps can handle it, any 32-bit processor will handle it just fine. Okay. Okay, why would you use the Hall effect and end stops versus switches? And the availability of the Hall effect end stop, do you need extra electronics? Okay, so you do need extra electronics for the Hall effect end stop because it is a custom designed board. It was designed for the V24, not the V2.4, the V24, which was the 60-inch massive printer. So this is the Hall effect end stop board right there. Actually, camera 2. This is the Hall effect board. That's the bottom. There's 2 potentiometers. There's your circuitry, yada yada. That's it. So the reason to use the Hall effect board is you don't really gain anything. It is more accurate than a micro switch, but we're talking accurate to the level you will never need on a 3D printer. The big advantage of it is contactless. So nothing ever actually touches anything, and it's adjustable because there's a potentiometer. You can adjust at what point it triggers because it's a sense distance thing. So it's just kind of a Gucci thing if you have one or if you want to hunt one down, because a few people made a bunch of them. If you ask on the Discord, some people might still have some willing to sell, because every now and then somebody will make up a run of PCBs and sell them. But if you have one, they are really nice, but you don't need them. You do not need them. It's just kind of a toy to have. Shit. Okay. Remember how I was going on about the magnet? I put it in the wrong spot. So I have to switch these two. Because when your gantry is upside down, left is right is left. So 1 minute. Yeah, I'll have to look into that the audio issue after the stream. This thing doesn't even have, I don't even know what the sound, this thing doesn't have a sound card. I don't even have, I have a mic plugged into the back. But yeah, I will look into the sound issue after the stream. The microphone is USB. we go. Oh, that is a really big delay, I just realized, on how I just said it's USB. That's like a full minute delay. I don't know why. Because right now I have it set in YouTube for like ultra low latency, or... Yeah, I have it set for low latency. So... I don't know. Because I'm actually watching the stream on a separate laptop. So I don't feel like getting burned by accidentally opening something up that I really shouldn't. Because who knows with Discord trolls and all that. So I keep all that on a separate laptop that's not even... I don't even have Discord on this computer that's streaming. Okay, so now comes the part where I realize I should have built a deeper desk because I got to get the frame up on here. So goodbye camera 2. This can go there. Stay. Tall boy. Okay. Yeah, they're good enough. Was that a 350? So... see here. Frame size 590 for the height of the frame. So this thing actually has like a 420, 410, 420 of Z travel. This is tall boy. So the reason tall boy is because this frame is based off my V1 frame. This is my V1 frame. I started with a Monoprice Select Mini. Everyone, when they build their own printer for the first time, builds way too big. So originally this was a 300 by 300 by 400 V1.55. Converting that to a current V2.4 gives me 330 by 330 by 410, 420-ish of Z. So don't build one this tall. I'm fully accepting the fact that I may have to chop the frame down. Yeah, I don't think it'll be an issue. I rarely print this tall. I built my 250 V2 has suited me well. Like this is my current work in progress, and this was on the 250. So yeah, it was multiple pieces, but if you're printing something over 48 hours, you don't want to print it all in one go because, you know, you have one jam and you're done. So, yeah, but the frame is already assembled and I'm not going to take it apart, cut it up, re-square. Yeah, I'm just going to build it as is, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to chop it down. So, this is tall boy. Although I might call it silverback now because of the extrusion, but we'll see. So, now we need to install this guy. With it being an oddball size frame, it's got a 13-inch bed. So I am just reusing my bed from the V1. So it's a 12-inch bed. It's a 300 millimeter bed. I could order a 13-inch bed, but that's a completely oddball size. I'd have to buy a new bed, a new heater, new PEI, new flex plate. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to use the old bed, and I'll use the extra room for purge bucket or something. I'm hoping in Cura I can tell it that I have like an out of bounds area, so I can use the whole volume if I need to. Like say I'm printing something that, you know, gets wider as it gets taller, then, you know, the bedside's not really a big issue, and then I can just turn on like a bounding box. But I'll have to look into that later. So. Yeah, and then big printer takes longer to heat up. So something this big, I'm probably not going to be able to get the same temperatures in it as I do on my smaller V2. Because this guy gets 40 to 50 degrees Celsius in the whole chamber. This guy, I guarantee you I'm not going to be getting 40 degrees Celsius up here if the heater's way down here. Yuhan, are you using Masumi corner blocks? Yes. I love me some Masumi corner cubes. They do have anti-rotation built into them. You do not need it. It's just a Gucci thing. Again, it adds $40 to your bill of material. But it is what it is. Cheers from Brazil. Woo. And Argentina. Damn. That's so far away. Cheers from Canada. Okay. So, now we need to put the gantry in the frame. So what I'm going to do now, I want to try something different. Let's see if I can do this. That might not work. That might work. Get it in there, and pivot. I need another box. I need another box. Yeah. There we go. It's installed. No. There we go. Make sure everything's facing the right way. So what I normally do is once the frame's or the gantry's installed, I'll run it up a bit and then I'll use zip ties and zip tie it to the top. That way it's not moving on you while you're trying to work on it. So let's see what size screws we need. And by the way, for anyone that's waiting to build one of these, the CAD's out. So if you need to know anything, the CAD has that info. Except why it doesn't want to zoom in fast sometimes. Come on. There we go. Inspect. So measure from the back of the screw. back of the screw head to back of the screw, we are at 20 millimeter. So M320. Hi from India, damn. Well, welcome. Yeah, this might not work. See, normally I would just put this on the ground and do it sideways, but I can't really get it in frame if I do that, so I'm doing it differently than I normally do. Which blue filament are your accent pieces? They are eSun ABS Plus Blue. That's the blue. I like it. And UK. People from everywhere. Hey, UK, what are you doing up this late? Go to bed. It's like 5 hours ahead of here. Okay, so now I got one screw in each. So now I'm actually going to try and raise it up and zip tie it. Where are my long zip ties? Did I lose them? I may have lost them. I did not lose them. What did I print them on? I printed them on a Voron. This guy. Good luck on the bill, cool dude. Cool dude. Popped in late. What do you use as probing speed, and how tight do you make the 4 large bolts that go into the gantry pivot points in the corners? For my gantry speed, I can't remember. The profile this guy runs is Duet 2 macro and macro and macro nesting folders, and it was originally rented for V2.0, and I just kind of made minute changes to it throughout the past 2 years, so I don't exactly know how fast my probing speed is, but it is pretty fast, and it only does 1 probe, but it does it 3 times. I've never had an issue with bed leveling, so I would just use the default configs for probing on that's part of the default firmware. And how tight do I make those bolts that for the pivot points? I go pretty snug. What I do is I leave them kind of loose. I run the gantry a bunch, like the leveling a bunch, just to make sure it is pretty tight. And then I snug them up. There's still a little bit of play, I believe, but I run them pretty tight. So there we go. Gantry's in. Welcome, Jim. Rodrigo, this one originally was a V1. I'm turning it into a V2 because a V1 this size. Actually, with V1.8, it would be a lot better, but this was a V1.5, so with rods. But I am turning it into a V2, so this is going to be a V2, this guy's a V2, and then I got a V0 back here. I may do a V1 down the line, because in my opinion, the V1 is a very good platform for trying out new stuff, just because it is more in line with the traditional Core XY with the fixed gantry up top. So I know a bunch of people are toying around with multi-material ideas for it. So if any of those pan out, I might build a V1. Cool dude, this is an oddball size because it was an oddball size V1 frame. So this is a 330 by 330 by 410, 420-ish. So this is not a normal size V2. The XY is fine. It's under the 350, but it's 400-ish Z. So, trying to figure out how I can do this without having to flip it on its side. Yeah, screw it, I might just flip it on its side. Belt stops. I might have room to do it. Man, compared to the original V2, there is so much room in these to feed the belts through. Oh my god. You used to never be able to do this. No, I ran it around a plastic part. I spoke too soon. So for belt tightening, okay, I'm going to wade into it with my personal opinion. There's people that bust out, measuring the hertz or how much it how much tension you got on it by how much it can flex and all kinds of, imparted knowledge from a million different people about how you should properly tension belts. I put it all together. I tighten them as much as I can by hand, and then I just make sure they're snug. I don't have a set tension. I try to make them even, so I'll go in the same point in the back, especially because in the back they should be equal, and I'll pluck them and make sure they pluck the same. But as for the exact frequency I tighten my belts to, I don't know, whatever that is. I just kind of, if I tighten them and the prints look good, that's what it is. I don't dive too deep into it. Too loose and you'll see issues. Too tight, you'll see issues. There's a happy medium, and you can kind of find it by just printing some stuff and trial and error. See how long before I give up and just flip it on its side. Now. Go. One. Ah, ah, ah. Two. Ah, ah, ah. There we go. 3, and 4. There we go. So it's the belts through the Z modules. How you could print with nylon. I've only printed nylon once on mine. Buddy at work, our work printer had a came with like a sample of Matter Hackers or MakerBot, I think PET or PTG nylon, and you can pretty much just run with the temperatures. I think I ran like 260. 265 on the hot end and like 110 on the bed. The only thing is you can't get the bed above 110. I wouldn't push past 110 just because the adhesive could potentially fail past that point. So 110 is the hottest I would run my bed continuously, for example. But as long as you can make the temperatures, I think you turn fan off. I only did it a couple times because I only had like 50 grams of the stuff. It printed fine. I couldn't really tune it. I didn't have enough to run like a full tune on it, but it printed fine. Yeah, Mr. Pure Basic. That's the problem with frequency. If your belt's not the exact same spec as somebody else, the frequency could be different depending how tight it is, depending if it's a new belt, old belt. That's why frequency is kind of a way to tune, in my opinion. I just go by feel. Brian, glad you enjoyed the video. I'm loving this little thing right now. It's so much nicer instead of having to find the mouse, scroll over, go on the pick the screen, okay, change screen, okay. So much easier to just push a button. Okay, so whenever you do belts, always leave extra. You want to leave, oh man, that's not high enough. Oh well. You want to leave extra. Don't trim the belts until the very end. Okay, so they 16 mil, I think they were 16. Yep. So 16 mil M5s on the top. There we go. So right now I'm just doing like a rough snug for these. So I'm not making them super tight yet. I'm just tightening them up because they will naturally stretch a little bit after you put some tension on them. So I'm just giving them a quick snug up and just going to let them sit for till next week when we get to the next step. And then I'll do a final tighten then. Right now they're just to hold it in place. I'm making a 350 millimeter. Can I buy 5 meters of 9 millimeter and 5 meters of 6? Do I need more? The bill of materials generator, the bomb generator, will spit out a number of what you need to buy. For the cost, honestly, I tend to buy just buy 10 meters at once because you'll probably end up using it at some point. And if not, it's not that much more. If you fail QC or QGL almost every other time, is it one specific corner? Is it just constantly where it never settles on 0? Where it's constantly correcting, then correcting down, then correcting up? There's a bunch of issues you can have for causing the tramming to fail. I had an issue where I had... do my motors backwards. So it was constantly basically doing the opposite of everything it tried to do to level the gantry. Wrong one. Correcting down and up. Make sure your motor assignments or your motor locations are correct. That can also be an issue. I've seen happen if you have your motors, if they think they're in a different location than what they are, that can also mess up. Because if you've tried tightening and loosening your belts and the issue hasn't gone away, odds are it's not a belt tighten issue. Okay. I would post in the Discord. There are a lot of people with a lot more technical knowledge about QCL issues. 'Cause I haven't had issues in quite a while, since like the very early days, so I haven't looked into a lot of the fixing a lot of the common issues, especially because I don't run Clipper on a V2. So issues that I might know how to solve may not be able to apply, essentially. So this guy will be running Clipper though. So you guys get to watch me try and figure out how to install that for the first time. On a taco. Oh yeah, let me pull it up here. So, for the top part of the belt clamp, the little notch sits on the outside of the printer. So it doesn't face towards the print volume, it faces away from the print volume, it faces towards your panels. And that allows you to, here, let me get an angle of it. Let's see here. Okay, so spin this guy around. Yeah, that's right, okay. Let's see if I can get this to focus. So, the reason come on, autofocus. There we go. Okay. So the reason there's this little notch right here on your top clamp for your belt is this little extra. You're not going to cut it flush on the bottom. I usually cut the bottom flush and then you leave all the stock up top. And the reason for that is it allows you to take your belt and pinch it in and then zip tie it to the vertical belt. This way you always have some extra there, and it makes whenever you have to take it apart for maintenance, it makes it much simpler to put everything back together with a little bit of slack. So you want this notch facing out so that you can tuck your belt around, and then you just put a little zip tie around it to hold it there, and it allows you to leave some stock. Yes, Dario, but always make sure buy extra, because you don't want to buy just the amount you need and then accidentally cut a belt short and then you're screwed. So I would buy, if you only need 5 meters, buy like 6 or 7 or 8 meters, just in case. You don't want to cut a belt short or damage a belt or something happen, and next thing you know you're waiting for the slow boat from China again. There we go. Okay, so I have my belts installed. Now I'm going to go through and finish attaching my carriages, because right now I only have one screw in each. You don't want that. So, put these away. Steve, for reversing the little things, you just do one at a time, and you should be fine. Alright, what size were these? Oh, these were 20 mil. I'm running really low on screws. I am not liking this. Now, for the carriages, anytime you have like 4 screws that screw into something, alternate installing them, and then wait till they're all installed before you tighten them. It just helps with alignment. I'm never building another printer this big. This is a pain in the butt. Yeah, it's funny. Everyone always gets on they either buy an ender, or whenever you go to build your first printer, everyone always builds a big one. everyone does, because it's like, oh my god, I'm going to print the biggest things. I'm going to print helmets in one go. But you don't realize how much of a pain in the butt it is. Like, I know people who have built Vorons that literally the room they built it in is the room it stays in because it barely fits through the door. Cool dude, do you install electronics at the end? Yes. I install electronics last. Actually, the very last thing I install is the bed. I have the bed all prepped and everything. It's all wired up. And I'll wire in the connections, but I don't install the bed to the very end because the bed is heavy. And it's a lot easier to flip this thing around without a giant slab of aluminum in it. So I basically build up the mechanicals of the printer. As you can see, that's what I'm doing right now. And then I go through and do all the electrical work. And then I put the bed on. So, and the same goes for when I'm doing maintenance on my printers. Anytime I gotta actually like do an upgrade or anything, the very first thing I do is pull the bed out of it. Because it just makes it so much nicer. Like, this guy weighs like 40 pounds with everything in it. A 400 millimeter D-bot. Ooh. What did you use for the a bed on that thing? Was it a cast aluminum plate? Yeah, because the D-bot doesn't have cantilever, but yeah. Alberto, thanks. I hope you find him helpful. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I have the gantry installed and belted up. So I'm going to do a very rough level. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to check and see how my racking is for the gantry. So I'm just making sure the spacing's the same everywhere. Because right now, if your gantry's all crooked and you check for racking, probably isn't going to be right. Okay, so that's. Oh yeah, so we got a bit of racking here, so I'm going to have to play around with that later. But essentially with racking is, as your gantry moves up and down, you want it to hit the back equally and hit the front equally. If it's crooked, it's racked. You don't want that, especially with Core XY. Now, you can adjust your belt tension to compensate for that a little bit, but you shouldn't be using that to correct any major mechanical issues. It's mostly once the belts are installed and tight, then you can adjust them to make sure they're equal, but mechanically it should be equal before. So yeah, so right now I have quite a bit of racking, so I'm going to have to go through and adjust that. So there's quite a few ways of doing this. You basically crack all your screws, move everything around until it all lines up, and then you tighten your screws again. Why I would even build a V0? Honestly, it's my backup printer. If my V2 is running and I want to print off something quick, that's what I use the V0 for. Or if something happens to it and this guy isn't finished yet, it's a backup. But for example, that didn't dry out. Oh well. Dropping everything. just for a size comparison, yeah, it's tiny. Leonardo, I'm hoping to get to start, or at least assemble the print head tonight. I don't know if I'll have time to install it, but I'm going to try and get to it. Okay, so what I did was I basically loosened the screws that hold the rear crossbeam together to the two AB motor mounts, and then I also loosened the screws that hold the gantry to the XY joints on both ends. And then back and forth a bunch, give it a little twist, and then you will find that pretty much gets rid of most of your racking. Because you're building it on a table, the odds are you're not going to assemble it square before you install it in the printer. So that's good there. Tighten a couple screws up. Make sure we're still good. There we go. And that is how you remove racking. Hopefully it's always that easy. Sometimes you can be chasing it for quite a while, but usually it just involves loosening up a few screws, letting everything find its home, and then you're good. Okay. There we go. Yes, Alberto, right now I just have the, actually let me read the full question. My Z-rails all feel the same, but some of them go down faster, slower due to the force of gravity. That could be the lubricant if you have grease in there. It could also be a slight amount of tension. Like, rails are designed to run with a load on them. So without a load, especially China rails, you might have some variance there. I wouldn't worry too much. As long as, like, when you put your hand on it and you move them, they all feel like they move smoothly with a little bit of force, you're fine. Like, some on this one, I think, like, this one wouldn't move. This one, you pick it up and you let go, it falls down under gravity. This one kind of moves. Like, as long as they all move, you know, with a little amount of force smoothly, you should be fine. It's a 3D printer, not a precision CNC machine. You're not cutting any lens grade injection molds here. Sure, everything's tight. Always make it a point whenever you go around and loosen stuff, always double check that you have everything tight. The last thing you want to do is build your printer and then a week into printing have a screw fall out of it. Perfect. There we go. Yeah, as long as they all feel good when you're pushing them slightly, you should be fine. Yes, Jeff. If once you put grease into them, some of them becomes pretty sticky. Like a lot of them won't drop under gravity once you put grease. I still use white lithium. I got a big tube of Mobile One monolith synthetic grease. I don't know. I've had this for years. It's just a generic white lithium grease. I don't know. It works. Some people like, yes, who makes the good rails? Highwind. Highwind recommends a specific grease, but that's industrial applications with legit Highwind rails. We're running 3D printers with Chinese rails. The loads on them are much smaller. Like, at the end of the day, just put grease on them. Honestly, butter will probably work. And if you print PLA, then you get buttery popcorn smell. Dario, for when your gantry is not aligned, what I recommend is loosening the screws that connect the rear beam. So these screws here for your rear beam. Man, I wish I had a mobile camera. And then also the screws for your gantry that connect the beam to the XY joint. Loosen them and then move everything around. Let it find its home, make sure everything lines up, and then tighten them once it's installed in the frame. I may make an actual dedicated video on removing racking from your gantry down the line, because I know that's an issue that a lot of people have, and that's a make or break thing with especially Core XY. Okay, so this is as far as we can go with the frame, so I'm going to put Tall Boy back. And if anyone's curious, this actually was the biggest thing I printed on it back in the day when it was a V1. So it prints like this, 2 pieces. It's glued together right now, but the head prints like this, and then the jaw prints like this. So the reason it's this big is because this is how big the jaw could be. So this is that T-Rex skull everyone has that you can find on Thingiverse. So this was printed on a V1.55. Okay, so time to move on to the X carriage. So hope I didn't just freeze it. There we go. What I do, especially if I'm assembling, I'll go through and hide everything I'm not actively working on. It just makes, a little easier to make sure you don't get lost or confused. And also, if you are running Fusion on a lower powered computer, as I am here, it does help quite a bit with performance. So I think it froze. Let's see here. Come on, Fusion. You got this. Come on. Who's a good AutoCAD software? Come on. There we go. So hiding everything you're not actively looking at does give you a pretty good performance increase because it's not rendering anything extra. So, Austy, $5 donation. Thank you, man. I'm not asking for donations. Anyone who does donate, the money goes into either Voron or for equipment for the stream. I'm not doing this to make any money, so anything donated I deeply appreciate, and it literally goes to just helping with Voron development or for improving the stream. So that's why I bought a mic. But yeah, as you can see, this thing's running an Intel 5450 from like 2009. So the only reason it's actually, running decently is because I have my old 1060 shoved into it. And hooray for the NVENC encoder. That thing is magic for running streams. So we're going to build the afterburner toolhead. Alberto, how square did you get your frame? When I put mine sideways, it wobbles a little bit, maybe a millimeter. A millimeter with the frame really shouldn't matter too much. What you can do, if you don't have like a granite countertop, depending on where you are in the world, if you have an electric stove or oven, some of them have glass tops. That's what I used originally. But what you can do is, if you have a tape measure, if you measure your corners diagonally, so diagonal and then diagonal, you can use that. If they are the same number, that side should be square. So you can go around your frame and measure corner to corner, and if you have corners that are out, you can adjust those to allow you to square up your frame if you don't have a perfectly level surface to square it up on and build it on. It's part of the reason I like the Masumi corner cubes. It makes squaring up a frame a little bit easier, but it's nowhere near required, especially if you are getting Masumi cut extrusions, because if they're out a little bit, they're usually out a little bit together. So all the 400 millimeter long ones you got might be all 401 because they have a jig and they set it up and they all cut them the same. Oh, come on. John, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that donation. And Danny, I'm gonna keep making these videos. I'm enjoying these Saturday night streams. Obviously, at one point, this thing will be built. The plan is at the moment is get the V2 up and running, and then I'm actually gonna go back to the i3 here. I'm gonna finish building that guy, and then I plan on making a series on how to essentially get started with printing ABS for a complete noob. Because a lot of people, that's a very common question we get is, hey, I have an Ender 3, hey, I have an MP Slug Mini or some other random cheap printer. How do I get it to the point where I can print something good in ABS? And I do plan on trying to make a series about that. So I'm going to keep making videos. I'm going to keep streaming because, one, we're all under quarantine. We don't have anything else to do. And two, I'm having fun doing this. So let's build an afterburner. I remember the very first time, pro tip, very first time you print ABS, don't go buy the cheapest ABS you can buy on Amazon. And when it stinks and doesn't work, blame ABS. Now, I have a background in ABS, so I knew it wasn't the ABS, but a lot of people buy the cheapest spool they can because, I'm just trying it out. I'm not going to spend money on, some good quality filament because I'm just trying it out. And then they get like a crappy $10 roll and it doesn't work, and so they assume it's ABS. Near Q. Thank you, man. Thank you. Oh, it's a little doggo. Yeah, let me see here. Like eSun ABS Plus, I buy this stuff by the case. Like I just got a case of it, came in because when it shows up in Canada, it's gone pretty quick. But I buy this stuff by the case. It's not pure ABS, so you do lose a little bit of temperature stability. So it's only like 98% as good in terms of like what temperature it can take. But in our use case, all my Vorons have always been built out of eSun ABS Plus. I've never had an issue with it. If like normal ABS is good to 85 degrees Celsius, for example, eSun might be good to 82, 83. So that small percentage of variance versus pure ABS isn't going to affect you in any way for a Voron build. And it's low warp. That's the reason I use it. I have tried other ABSs. Unfortunately, up here in Canada, we can't get like KVP and Paramount and the other good stuff. So compared to like the other stuff we can get up here, I just know the stuff I can load it in my machine, load up a full 24-hour plate of Voron parts, hit print, and go to bed before the first layer even started. And I know when I wake up, my printer will be chugging away just fine because it's so reliable. I've never had warping issues with this stuff. Cool, dude. Thank you. Thank you. Again, nobody has to donate. I'm not asking for donations, but anyone who does donate, I am trying to find another camera. I would like to turn this camera into the close-up camera and actually get a proper camera, but with, you know, the whole Rona going on, that might be a while just because I don't feel like overpaying for anything right now. But anyways, building a hot end. Alberto, yes. The reason ABS quality is super different is it depends on, most companies don't make the plastic they sell. So they'll buy a Gaylord, a 1,500 pound Gaylord of plastic from X company, and then they'll run it through their machine and make filament. Odds are they are not making the actual resin, the pellets itself, the ABS material itself. They're just buying it from somebody else. So a lot of, you know, Chinese filament, for all you know, that's old Barbie dolls melted down and turned into filament. You can't guarantee the quality. Like in injection molding, like I'm used to seeing, you know, high quality ABS, and it even smells different. And yes, part of me has been very tempted to get one of those Philistruders because I have access to pretty much unlimited amount of pellet ABS at work, but it's just not worth it. Oh, outdated part. Yes, Danny. Like right now, I do have this guy for overhead views, but this is a crappy Microsoft Life Cam that I had floating around. Ooh, that is really flickering. Let me turn off autofocus. That's why I had autofocus off. But yeah, like right now, you know, people want $300 for a Logitech C920, which is ridiculous. So I'm not going to be buying a new webcam anytime soon. It's just nuts. Jeff, I appreciate it. I'm hoping to get something better than a C920, but we'll see how the markets fare soon. Leonardo, they could be Ken dolls. It doesn't have to be Barbie dolls. Or whatever the Chinese equivalent is. A lot of cheap plastic is literally made with just bulk Chinese resin, and the quality, you have no idea what the quality is. So, Alberto, security cameras. Yeah, there's security cameras. A lot of people are just buying, even if you want to go like the streaming route where you buy like a camcorder or a DSLR or whatever, capture cards are even out of stock everywhere. It's like microphones. I'm lucky I found this microphone in a mom and pop shop in Quebec that shipped it to me, because if you go online looking for even microphones, all the comments recommended, you know, if you Google or YouTube, you know, hey, I'm streaming, give me stuff to buy in the top 10 lists, everything's gone. Everything's gone. So I was lucky with this, but everyone working from home, everyone bought webcams, and then they realized the audio on a webcam sucks, so they bought a mic. Well, now nobody can buy mics, nobody can buy webcams, so everyone's buying camcorders and capture cards so they can use that. It's a vicious cycle right now. Anyways, printing. So we're gonna have to put some heat set inserts in. So let's see, where do we gotta put heat sets? So I want to do all those first. Leonardo, 15 US for 500 grams. I pay $24.99 Canadian per kilogram up here, but it really depends on your local market and all that jazz. Okay, so I got nothing in this guy. Oop, oh, I went too far. Control R. No. Whatever. Hide the fan. Now the reason I'm going through this is because the current revision I have is the older one, so I haven't put this revision together yet. So I'm just double checking. Don't need the motor, hide the motor. Okay, so I gotta put some in there. Okay, so I got there. Go in the front. Yeah. Okay. So heat up this guy. And again, with the soldering iron, run it at like whatever temperature you use to print your plastic. So I run it at like 220, which is lower, because you really don't want to melt your plastic. You just want to set the insert. So, and again, with heat set inserts, you want the knurled ones, and there is a little lead in with them. So drop the lead in into position and then melt it down into place. Yuhan, yeah, I would expect Isun ABS to be cheaper in Korea because it comes from Japan. Not everything from Japan is bad, but should be cheaper there because the shipping would be a lot less. Now with these, you want to make sure they are set flush or just below the surface. You don't want to stick them up because you do have another part that sits directly on this. So you want them flush or just below. Okay, so that is that one. So we got the back plate here. With Fusion, by the way, if you click on a part and then hit V, it hides it. So that's how I'm hiding stuff here. You can also, if you want to hide stuff, you can just click here in the drop down. And that hides that whole assembly. So, you know, if you want to hide your idlers, boom, hides it. That's the one I want. Okay. So yeah. So there are guides out there on how to use Fusion 360 a lot better than I'm using it right now. But I'm all just, you know, self-taught. I just kind of bashing my way through it. Is your video on making the mosquito extruder relevant for Dragon Afterburner? That video was, I believe, for 2.2. So for, you know, putting together your mosquito, it's relevant, but for the actual assembly of the hot end, no. That video, unfortunately, is now outdated. If you're building a 2.2, it's still indated, but this is for the afterburner tool head, so this will be a little bit different. Young Yu, $5. Thank you for your video, and thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Okay, so where was I? Zoom back in. Oh, I hid some stuff I didn't want to hide. There we go. Okay, so it looks like I got two from the back here. There we go. And do I have any other ones? Oh yeah, I got some down here in the shroud, I believe. Okay, I got two in the front. And then two there. Okay. Oh, they're all in there. Okay. So, I got two there and two up there. So on this guy, I am using a mosquito hot end. Now we have had some issues with mosquitoes with the fact that the heater block on the mosquito is much wider than on the V6 or the Dragon, and we actually have had issues with the ducts deforming from the heater. So this guy is actually printed in ASA, not ABS. You can tell it's gray versus black. It's a charcoal gray ASA. So if you do have ABS on hand, and you are using a mosquito hot end, like pure ABS or ASA or polycarbonate or a higher temp, until we rectify the design issue, and we are looking into it, I would recommend trying to print this at a with a more temperature resistant plastic than eSun ABS Plus. That seems to be the only thing giving us an issue right now, and that's only if you have the mosquito hot end. If you are running the Dragon or a V6, it's a non-issue. That's something you don't got to worry about. Like right now, my tall boy or short boy over here, V2.4, is running a polycarbonate with the mosquito, and it's just fine. We also, this design has changed since this guy was built. This guy's running beta parts right now. I may update him at some point, or I may just do what I always do and just leave him until, you know, the next revision comes out. Because I have a tendency to do that. Because if it ain't broke, there we go. Okay, let me catch up here. Why do you use two linear rails on X? Wasn't one enough? Woke gentleman. So originally on 2.1, well, 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, we only used one rail because the hot end was Bowden setup. Now that we have the extra weight of an extruder on the hot end, two rails is more stable. Now, people are running 2.4 is with, well, afterburner tool heads on either 2.2 or 2.4 with one rail. The only difference is because of the weight balance, you simply can't run it as fast. You do have a little bit of ringing issues if you run it at high speeds. So you just have to run a little bit slower. Two rails allow you to run it faster because it's a more rigid setup. So yeah, with Bowden, you could run with one rail just fine because that's how we did it for a while. But now with the extra weight, and especially with the way everything's set up, it basically, with two rails, it stabilizes it in two axes. With one rail, it can teeter-totter. So you either have all the bottom rail and all the weight up top, or you have a side rail with all the weight back here. So two rails allow you to balance it in both directions. As for a weight issue, switching from a Bowden setup with one rail to direct feed with two rails, I had to lower my accelerations like 10%. Basically, with the amount that I had to drop my speeds and feeds, a 24-hour print became a 25-hour print, or 25 and a half hour print. So that's really not a lot of, that's really not a big jump for the less amount of work you have to do to tune it. Because with a Bowden, it's quite long. It takes quite a bit to tune it properly. With direct feed, it's just so much easier to tune, and your prints come out better, in my opinion. So direct feed is the way to go. Why did you go for a mosquito versus a dragon? I bought my mosquitoes. I bought two of them. When they pretty much first came out, there was like a group buy that went on, and I purchased two, and then the dragon came out just after. So I have them. I'm not going to throw them out because they work just fine. But at this point, I would be buying dragons. I have a dragon already. I'm going to be putting it in the V2 or in the V0 at one point, because right now that just has a V6. But at this point, I would get a dragon over mosquito simply because they function pretty much the same, and the dragon's cheaper. Do you think extrusion tech used in both 3D printers can be improved further with induction heating? So, Mr. Pierre, the issue isn't really with heating. You can jam a 1,000-watt heater in this thing if you really wanted to. The problem is you are taking a solid plastic, melting it, and then having to cool it. You can only do that so fast. That's the reason we don't use 3mm filament anymore. Everyone went to 1.75. With 3mm, you couldn't heat up the entire thickness of the filament quick enough or equally, so your extrusion would suffer. You couldn't, heat it up and jam it through your nozzle quick enough because you'd melt the outside and the inside would still be solid or not as liquid. That's why 1.75 is more common now, and 3mm has pretty much gone the way of the dodo because you can heat up the whole thickness of it equally or more equally. Basically, we kind of are at the limits of current FDM manufacturing. Like, this guy can outrun the hot end, no problem. I can easily tell it to outrun the hot end. It's a limit of the technology. So if you want to print bigger, and faster, you have to go to a bigger nozzle. That's really the only way to do it. And there already are, 2mm nozzle pellet fed printers. Those things exist, But for home gaming with a 0.4mm nozzle, you're not going to see much increase in speeds. Quality, a well-tuned Ender 3 prints as good as a Prusa for 95% of use cases. So the big thing with a Voron, for example, the way it is with the Core XY, the Belted Z, the Flying Gantry, it makes it easy to use. And it allows you to move very fast when you can move very fast. A big thing with CNC machinists is efficiency. You're always trying to get your machine running as efficient as possible, and downtime is killer because downtime adds up. So when you can crank your accelerations to 10,000 and move 350 millimeters a second during travel moves, that might not save you much per single travel move, but over the course of a 20-hour print, that saves quite a bit of time. Another thing is Z-hop. So I run Z-hop all the time. Now, if you're running, you know, you have a bed that's on lead screws or ball screws, and, you know, every time you do a Z-hop, it's versus this guy. So every Z-hop, I'm saving 75% amount of the time versus a lead screw driven printer. So it's those things that save time. Being able to move as quick as you can, accelerate as quick as you can when you're not printing. It saves a lot of time. If you're ever curious, load it up in Cura. And load up like a Monoprice Select Mini profile, and then load up a Voron profile and slice the same thing at the same speeds. You should see a speed difference. Also, there's ways of slicing stuff, putting stuff on your bed, you know, put stuff close together so you cut down on travel moves. There's all kinds of ways you can do to get as much efficiency out of your printer as possible. Okay, oh yeah, we're building a hot end. So, Triangle Labs BMG extruder. Let's see here. Now, it has been a while since I built one of these, so I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, I forgot some heat sinks, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got those. Now, pretty sure I have some. Yeah. So I am missing 2. And the frame mount. So I got 2 right here. 1 here, 1 on the other side. Running low on tea. Okay, so let's build one of these thingamajigs by taking this apart. So how does this come apart again? Like that. Trying to get the idler out of here without breaking the part. Just in case I ever want to put this back together, which I doubt, but there we go. So when you take apart your extruder, your BMG, you really don't want to lose the little pin bushings or pin bearings in the idler. Okay, That's apart and back in the box. So this whole assembly stayed together, so we're just going to keep it together for now. That goes in like that. And then we have another part that I forgot to put a heat set insert in. Where is it? Right. Nope, not that. Oh, there's my idler. Do I have an updated part again? Let's see here. Where's the latch? There's the latch. Okay. So another part that I got to put an insert in that I forgot, because that happens all the time. Man, this camera is really bad. Oh well. And if anyone's curious about how strong these are, the printed Z parts that I used for the video, I pulled these back out and I had to put the part in a vise, put an M3 screw into there, and then use a hammer, a claw hammer, and pry them out. And it ripped the plastic apart pulling these out. So the plastic will fail and come out with these. So they're in there pretty good. We got the bag of goodies as well we're going to need. So bring that up, bring that down, get a bigger view, that over. Unplug the iron before I catch something on fire. So actually, I think I got to put the motor on. Okay, one of these guys has got to be a pancake. Pancake. So I'm trying to remember which way I had the wires come out. So that is the back. So the wires come out that side. Okay, so through 8, I believe. Again, I don't have the manual, so order of operations is completely subject to change when it comes to assembling this. I'm just going off what I have in the CAD files and just sort of winging it. So if you follow the video, hopefully I will have a functioning product by the time we're done. But if you do have any questions, hopefully the manual will be out eventually and you can reference that. this guy goes there. So, time to put our drive gear on. Which is this guy. That goes like that, right? No, like that. So that goes there. This guy goes on like that. So what I'm going to do is take the set screw out and put some thread locker on it. Did I lose the stream? 1 second. Is it recommended to get the full extruder versus the parts? I would recommend getting the full Triangle Labs extruder. That way, I don't know, for the price, just get the whole thing. I don't know. Call me stubborn, but I'd rather make sure I have everything. I like having the whole kit just in case you ever actually want to use a BMG down the line. You have one. I don't think it's a big price savings getting just the parts, and you need to make sure you get all the parts, because some kits are missing, like for example the drive gear. And for those curious, I use 99-cent nail polish as my thread locker. Because it works. And it's cheap. Now, these set screws for the drive gears are pretty small, so you really don't want to strip them. If you are using Allen keys with like a ball end, don't tighten with the ball end, because the ball end is so small it can strip. You really want to be very careful when you tighten these. You do not want to strip them. Yeah, John, sometimes, it's China. You're your own quality control with China, so you might luck out and get 2 BMG extruders. You might not luck out. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of how it is. Okay. So that is that. Now I think I can put this together now. So that goes in like that. Right? Yeah. So when you put it together, take a look down and you can see the filament path, and you're going to want to adjust your drive feed gear here so that the teeth run exactly where the feed path is. And then also you're going to want to get some filament right here. And before you go too far with putting this together, you want to make sure that your feed path is actually clear. So this guy is fresh off the printer, and the filament runs smooth through it. you may, depending on how good your printer is, you may need to run a 2mm drill through here. If you can find a 1.75mm drill, that's great. Most people can't, so try and find the next closest size drill and drill it out, because you want to make sure this filament path is clearing. You don't want it binding or catching. You don't want it too tight. If your printer is dialed in, when it comes right off, that feed path should be bang on. Yeah, you can see it right there in shitty Zumo vision. But yeah, that is fresh off the printer, and filament moves right down there perfectly. Bueno. Okay, so we're going to have to adjust that. And when you adjust it, screw both halves together when you go to adjust it, because you want to make sure you actually have everything lined up properly. So, which part is that goes right through. Okay, so that one I can put in. So this screw goes right through. Let's see. I believe a lot of these are M330. Yes. Actually, I might have to put this in. Oh, no, that drops in. Okay. So M330. That guy over top. Oops, sorry. Okay, so you missed it, but I put the that part, I don't know what any of these parts are called, in the latch arm in M330s. Screw them together. Now, with these two screws, you don't want to tighten them too much, because you don't want it to bind on this. You just want them tight enough to hold everything together and still be able to lock and unlock. That's nice. Check it after it arrives. Yes, whenever I get packages from China, the first thing I do is open them up, because you don't want to, sit there and have a pile of all your Voron parts and like, okay, I got everything, time to build, and you open it up and something's wrong. So, yeah. Fix any discrepancies as soon as you can, in my opinion. Okay, where is my little... Ooh, that's tight. That's tight. I really don't want to strip this guy. I might be taking this apart to take this guy out, because I really don't want to strip this. There we go. Okay. So, because I'm taking them out, put some thread locker on it. Yes, John, it is called the latch shuttle. I am really bad when it comes to the parts to this printer. You would think, I've built officially I've built two Voron. I have three serials. V100, which doesn't exist anymore because it's torn apart. I got a V0 and a V2. And you would think I would know the serial numbers or the parts a little bit better than I do, but I do not. So right now I'm just lining up the feed path. And what you can do, again, put a piece of filament in there, and that will kind of make sure you have it lined up. There we go. Fortunately, there's not really a lot of room to get your Allen key in there. So in this position, you know, an actual set of proper drivers would probably be good, but there we go. Okay, that's lined up. Okay, now we got to put an idler together. So for the idlers, what I do is before I install them, I actually grease them up. And for that, I use my that tube of grease that you saw earlier. It's just a tube of white lithium. I use this old dropper I got, and I actually use that to apply it. So I always grease these up before I put them together. And where did I put them? You really want to make sure you don't get grease into the actual filament feed path, because greasy filament is not good to have. So you do your best to try and avoid that. There we go. That should snap right on. There we go. Oops, I missed a few here. Parts from AliExpress taking longer. So the reason shipping from China is kind of borked right now is a lot of stuff used to fly e-packet and a lot of the other cheaper shipping options. What they would do is they would take the package and it would fly in the belly of a commercial airplane. So with passengers, any unused cargo space that wasn't taken up with luggage, they would put packages in there, and then they would fly over to wherever they gotta go. So now that commercial flights aren't really a thing because of Rona, all the cheap, easy transport's gone. So stuff is actually having to wait for commercial cargo transportation, slow boat, the legit slow boat, throwing it on a cargo ship. So all the stuff that used to be able to get out real quick is now taking forever. That's why you don't really get the cheap shipping options anymore. E-packet's not really common anymore on AliExpress. All the cheap stuff's gone. Yay, Rona. Okay, so another M330. Oh, we have a piece that I have to run a drill through. So every now and then, I seem to get them when they're printed in this orientation. Your screw doesn't fit. Instead of forcing your screw through, just get a 3mm drill bit and just clear it out. Especially any point like this where the screw is actually meant to be a pivot point, you want to make sure it moves freely. Yeah, good enough. There we go. Easy fix. So when you are building your printer, don't be afraid to drill out holes if you need to. Sometimes you have to. It's not a big deal. It won't hurt anything. Actually, I think this one's a 25 mil. I believe it is, yeah. Or is it a... No, it's a 30. Derek got a laser from GearBest in 3 weeks. If that thing flew or shipped like freight, I fully expect that to ship in a more reasonable time frame, because it probably shipped like UPS or something. Anything shipping like, buying, a cheap, $3 item off AliExpress, I don't expect that to fly quick anymore. Okay. So make sure before you close everything up, you want to make sure your gears line up. Now there should be some play in the idler, and this will allow it to line up with your feed gear if there is anything out of alignment. And then just look down the feed path as well once it's closed to make sure everything lines up. China post, that ain't bad then. I know poor tall boy might be running some painter's tape for a bit, because I ordered the flex plate recently, energetic flex plate, so we'll see how long that takes to come. Because I do have PI, I can glue directly to the bed, but I'd rather run a flex plate on it. And I do have one already, but it's an AliExpress, or it's an Amazon everyone. I can't remember the name brand. Somebody bought one last week and said it sucked, and I fully expect it to suck because it was on sale. I only bought it just because it was so cheap up here. But, worth a shot. Only one that needs to use a micrometer to check drill. I have to, because a lot of my drills are fractional. I don't really have metric drills. Canada and the US, you're hard pressed to find metric drills. It's just not common. So my drills are all fractional, so I have to use them. Vernier just to see where the next closest one is. Okay. So that is the clockwork. So it comes up a lot. The afterburner is the name of the tool head assembly, not the extruder. So an afterburner tool head is the whole package. Clockwork is the name of the extruder. That's why on the V0 it's called the pocket watch, because it's a more compact version of this meant for a NEMA 14. So you could use this by itself and strap this to your printer and use this as an extruder. It's its own thing. Whose PEI am I using? I am using energetic. This guy used to run CS Hyde. I had a 40 mil thick, well, 1 millimeter 40 mil, which is, it's confusing, but basically if you're in North America, you'll see mil, MIL. That's thousandths of an inch. So I use the term thou because that's common in my trade. So it's 40 thou. It's 40 thousandths of an inch. You also see 40 mil. That's where like 6 mil poly isn't 6 millimeter thick. It's 6 thousandths of an inch thick. So I was using a 40 mil, so 1 millimeter or 1 millimeter thick layer of PEI on this before, and that was glued right to the bed. And then I just bought a flex plate from Energetic with the stick-on magnet, and I haven't had a single issue with it for the past like 3 months. I've had it, and I plan on running that on everything. I haven't had any issues with it. Okay, so clockwork assembled. Let's build up the heater. So we are using a dragon. There's a dragon, or correction, mosquito. Dragon staying in the box. If anyone remembers, these are the printed socks. And I still have a bunch. So I'm using that too. So we have that. This guy fits into here, like so. Now I do need to check the orientation. Come on, come on. This model only has the V6. Let's see here. Oh wait, I can just look at mine. Okay. So that is the correct way. 1,000. Alberto, I build 100,000 pound injection molds based off the thou. I know it's stupid, especially as someone who lives up here in Canada land, who's officially metric. But using thous is better than fractional, in my opinion, especially with precision, especially considering most machining, your Bridgeports, your lathes, at least around here, everything's still in thousandths of an inch. So at least thou is, it's 1,000, it's a 10 divisible. It isn't, imperial or standard where it's, fractions and screw that, screw fractions. At least thou is divisible by a common number. Okay, that goes there, that goes there. Oh wait, I gotta run the wires on this first. So, let me just double check. Okay. I ordered a flex plate for Voron 0 from Energetic on 7 April, and there hasn't been an update in shipping since April 10. I fully expect it to take, it's 3 months to get here. My Dragon I ordered mid-January, and it didn't show up till the end of March. Should I use a Triangle Lab or original Bondtech? I would go Triangle Lab simply for the price. You're ripping it apart to use the guts, and the guts of the Triangle Lab are good. I wouldn't waste the money on a legit Bondtech extruder. Yes, metric is good, but unfortunately I live in North America. Well, north of Mexico, North America. Yeah, metric is, it's funny because if you look at, okay, so the V2 250, the V2 350, the V2 300, if you actually look at what your bed size is, your bed is an inch bed. So it's a 10 inch, a 12 inch, and a 14 inch. That's why you on the original V0 or V2.0, it was 254 by 254 for travel, because everything was actually based around an inch standard bed. So we rounded it to 250, 300, and 350, but you're actually building around an inch standard bed for the Voron V2 and V1. Fun fact. Okay, so let's find some heaters. Where did I put all my heaters? Which ones do I want to use? Let's use these guys. Have you ever seen a DIY heater? I got into the printing scene 2.5 years ago, so store-bought was very common back then. But if you go back to like the original like J-heads and whatnot, people were using original like DIY heaters, especially bed heaters. If go digging for ye olde days of printing, and there's some pretty jank setups from back in the day. Definitely nothing fire code rated. Okay, so another reason I don't really like the mosquitoes is while it works really good, you have to use boron nitride thermal paste to actually attach your heaters. So I am missing a screw. Hopefully I have it in here. I'm missing a screw. I might have to use another one. I'm missing a little side screw here. Where did that go? Well, of course you don't get an extra thread. So, with the mosquito, your heater doesn't actually lock into place. It's a pretty tight fit, but it's like a ring fit. Same with your heater or your thermistor. It just sort of sits in there. So how it works is you have a screw on each side that prevent it from actually being pulled out, but you use boron nitride thermal paste, and it's a thermal transfer paste, and it also hardens. So you put this paste into the hole, you put your heater and your thermistor in. It's good because it actually makes the heat transfer more efficient and better, but it's a messy pain to work with. I prefer the V6 style where you just clamp the block to it. It's just simpler, in my opinion. So I'm gonna have to find another screw. I could have sworn I had it in somewhere. Pretty sure they're just normal stainless steel screws. Oh, there it is. I think that's it. Yeah, either way, hopefully that works. Let's see here. Yep, that'll work. Let me see, catch up here. Gotta stop working every now and then, check comments. DIY heater, does heater sensor get any thermal interface material? On the Mosquito, it does. On your V6 and your Dragon, you do not need to use this stuff. This stuff is only for the Mosquito. Now I get this way. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt because the air conditioning's on. It was actually pretty hot today. I'm south of Detroit, so I'm not that far north. For Dragon, any thoughts on Mosquito versus Dragon? I would get the Dragon, simply because it's easier to work with. It's not, you got to deal with this shit. It's cheaper, and performance wise, they're about the same. I would get the Dragon. Energetic magnet. Have you noticed any issues printing above 90 in reaction to magnetism? I've been printing ABS, even ASA with a 110 bed, and I haven't had the plate move on me, so it hasn't been an issue. V6 build video. I thought you said you used it. If you're talking about the thermal paste from the heat break to the heat sink, yes, you want to use thermal paste like CPU thermal paste or whatever came with your heat sink or your hot end. You want to use it from the heat break to the heat sink. You don't want to use that stuff in the anywhere in the hot heater block itself, because it'll bake and solidify. You don't want that. This stuff is different from that stuff. That's to keep stuff cold. This is to transfer. Well, they're both for transferring heat, but this is for a different purpose. So don't use this stuff in your V6, and don't use that stuff where you use this stuff, if you get what I mean. Okay. I hate this shit. I can't remember if this stuff is good to get on your hands, but it's a mess, so wear your gloves. So Dragon can go away. Where'd I put the box for the Dragon? Okay, so first I'm going to do just kind of a test fit just to see how I want to align stuff. So I have some zip tie mount points on one side of your fan duct here. So I'll probably route everything up that way. And then zip tie that in position. Yep, so we're good there. Okay, so thank you for doing these streams. I'm new to the Voron design and I'm learning a lot from these. No problem. I hope you enjoy them. And whenever you're working with like heaters and whatnot, you know how you're going to be crimping connectors onto them. So don't be afraid to, trim them a little bit earlier just so you have more room to work with things. Makes it a little bit easier. So, and don't be afraid to dry fit stuff. Test fit, test fit, test fit. You really don't want to go through all the time. Put something together, only realize it won't work that way. So, okay, so yeah, so that works. I got clearance there. Nothing's pinched. I'm good. So I'm going to put this together now. So I can put the screw on one side now. This is a mosquito-centric advice, but you can use this with any heater. Anytime I have a screw or a set screw in an actual heater block, I actually use anti-seize. You don't need to use this. This is like, if you have it, use it type thing. But I put anti-seize on it. What is this stuff rated up to? Yeah, this stuff is good up to 982 degrees Celsius. So this will prevent you from like a screw seizing in your heater block. So I like to use this stuff, especially on the Mosquito here. those things, just a little dab will do ya. Until you drop the screw into it. Shit. You didn't see that. Where are my tweezers at? Okay, so that's not how you apply it, but it works either way. Any word on issues people on Discord are having with the mosquito melting? I went over it earlier. It has to do with the fact that the mosquito tool or the mosquito heater block is much wider than both the V6 and the Dragon. Let me just put this together and I'll show you. Yeah, I got thermal paste on everything. Oh well. So, the Dragon heater block and the V6 heater block are pretty much the same size. So if you look at it, there's your Dragon and there's your mosquito. So the mosquito is wider. So because it's wider, it puts out more heat to the side. And because it puts out more heat closer to the ducts get a bit melty. So we did change the duct geometry a bit. And we do recommend printing with like polycarbonate or actual pure ABS or ASA because eSun ABS Plus just does not have enough of the heat resistance. It's good for everything else in the printer, don't get me wrong, but that's just a little too hot there. So we are working on the duct issue, but in the meantime, this is ASA. So this guy's been running PC and it's been fine. And that's running the ones that are closer, so the pre-revision. RCF has indicating he's not a fan of the mosquito. The mosquito's good. It's just with the Dragon being a thing, there's no reason to go with the mosquito. The extra finicky parts that make this kind of annoying, you don't really gain anything with it. The Dragon's just cleaner and easier and cheaper. Like, it's not bad. It's just not worth it in most of our opinions. Ultimately, your videos are why I went. Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks, Derek. Just get a new one. The screw now it's got the thermal. It's got the stuff on you. A dab will do you. It's a big dab, as the kids do. Okay, now to make a fucking mess. I hate this stuff. So what I do is you basically just put some into the hole and then put the heater in. And if anyone's curious, it's a 24 volt. Always make sure it's a 24 volt. So I whenever I get a heater in, the first thing I do is get my multimeter and do a resistance check to ensure it is a 12 or 24 volt heater and it is rated for what it's rated for. They are laser engraved usually, but you really don't want to put a 12 volt heater in a 24 volt printer or vice versa. You really want to make sure what you're buying is what you're getting with heaters. Now, if you're buying from Triangle Labs or one of the other, reputable dealers, you're probably fine, but I always double check to make sure my heater is what it says it is. So I've already done that with this guy. Would the sock with fiberglass and Captain tape fix the problem? So if you look at the sock, it's actually, if you look at where it's melting, it is where the heater comes out of the sock. So it's an area of the sock that's not covered by the sock that is where it's melting. Like the heat is just blasting out of that one little area, and because it's basically where the end of the heater is, or it's the side with the wire actually. So it's the wires that get close enough to cause the issue. It's kind of a dumb problem, but it's one of those things. Okay. So I'm actually going to have to modify this guy. this is a DIY sock, so it doesn't have a hole here because I moved stuff. You could, I don't know if wrapping like more Captain tape or, you know, that the fiberglass insulation some of the older heaters came with, or hot ends came with, would work. If you have a dragon, that would be, or a mosquito, that would be something to look into. If you don't have a mosquito, just don't buy the mosquito and you don't have to worry about it. The only reason I'm using the mosquito is because I already have it. And I spent quite a bit on them because I bought 2 of them back around when they first started getting popular. So I don't want to waste the money basically that I spent on them. Depends on the temperature. SLS printed duct. If it can take 90 plus Celsius, it might be okay. I have no idea what the resin is rated for. I don't dabble in resin printers. I don't do minis or anything like that, so I don't really see a point to it. So, this tube will do quite a few hot ends. So if you do have it, if you do have a mosquito, you do need to buy this. Only buy one. It'll last you a long time. So now we're going to make a mess. And you basically just kind of put it in. Give it a little squirm as I put it in. And it's going to push out the extra. Do the same with the heater, or the thermistor. Put that in. I'll push out the extra. Well, I got to put the other screw in, retaining screw, so hopefully this time I don't drop it into the... there we go. There, I'll do it again. There. Oh, I don't even have it on camera. There. There. Okay. So... Now these screws, you don't have to tighten them too tight. They're just there to prevent the heaters from falling out if, you know, for some reason they get tugged on or whatever during the print. So wipe them off. The excess. Now you have to let this stuff actually harden. So what I do is I put everything in, and then I'll install it in the afterburner, and then I'll zip tie everything in place, and then you gotta let it harden. So see here, that goes this way, that goes that way, you go like that. Okay, so what size screws do I need here? Let's try these ones. That might work. M320. Okay, so there we go. Now, this is why I like the Dragon and Mosquito compared to the V6. This is held in place by actual screws. With the V6, it's a groove mount. Groove mount needs to die. E3D is like dropping the ball big time with the new stuff. Groove mount needs to die. It needs to die horribly. It is a horrible way to mount a hot end. There are much better ways to be doing it. So these use M2.5 screws. So I got the right one. Yeah, I do. So you have to basically, when you install this, you need to put the heater in, but screw the two parts together, and then you have to put the screws in from the top that came with the Mosquito, and then screw them together. And these are the only M2.5 screws in the whole printer, and they only used if you have a Mosquito hot end. Otherwise, you don't need to worry about M2.5 at all. So yeah. Actually, let's come with zip ties. I'm going to use the zip ties because what else am I going to use them for? Actually, these won't even fit. Never mind. I'm still disappointed. I bought 2 Mosquitoes and they only gave me 1 sticker, so I can only put it on 1 printer. So if there's anybody from Slice who happens to watch this video, I only got 1 sticker. I bought 2 Mosquitoes. I was gonna bug you guys at Murph, but unfortunately Rona, so we didn't go to Murph. But yeah. Anyone buy the GT2 80 tooth pulley? If you're talking about the one from Pouch, yes, that's what I'm using in Tallboy. Is using the one from Pouch. They work fine. You can use those, the printed ones, or the black ones that don't have flanges on them. Okay, these ones don't fit. Pretty sure I have zip ties that fit in here. I hope I have zip ties that fit in here. I might not have zip ties that fit in here. What did I use for that guy? I had zip ties. Did I have different zip ties? I might have used different zip ties. Because these ones are too wide. You need to use really thin zip ties for this part. Let me check what I'm currently using. That's not that. Oh. Do I have other zip ties? Do I have other zip ties? That's not going to work. Huh. Yeah, those are thinner. So I went on a cleaning binge over the past few days, so I might have thrown out the size of zip ties I need to hold this together properly. These guys are all too big. This ain't gonna work. Oh, found one. Okay, so I'm going to kind of finagle this for now and have to come back to it and fix it later. So I got one zip tie, so I'll do one zip tie, obviously. There we go. Okay. So Jeff, what length are the M2.5 screws? I think they're M2.5 by 10 or 8. They come with your mosquito. If you pull up the CAD data, I think it might be in there, but they come with the mosquito. So just look at when you buy a mosquito, go to the website. It'll tell you what it comes with. Hopefully. It's I don't know, it's 2 of the screws that come with the mosquito. So since I don't have 2 zip ties, I'm just going to use a twisty tie for now and just change it out later. Don't use twisty ties on your printers, kids. It's just a temporary thing. Actually, it doesn't even fit. Never mind, can't use a twisty tie. So I got one zip tie for now. One zip tie for now. I'll fix that later. Cool. So, where are we next? Although it is getting pretty late. So I may actually continue this another night, because I've already been going at this for, oh shit, it's 3 hours. Time flies when you're having fun, kids. You know, according to my demographic, most of you guys are in like your 30s, which I am too, so. Do you find the wires get brittle over time? So these wires, especially for the heaters, they're usually not they're not braided. It's usually solid strand wire. Solid strand wire can work harden. So when exposed to heat and bending, they do become brittle and break. So your heaters, you really want to make it a habit to not bend your heating wires as little as you can. So bend them into position once and leave them, and don't bend them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You will break them. So you really want to keep the wires, in position. That's why it's good to have, the zip tie downs right here. So lock them in place and then don't play with them after. Use some heat shrink on the wires first. Yeah, there's tons of ways to clean up this look, to make it look better. Right along the path when you're going to zip tie them. Yeah, you could, I've seen people have cut these and swapped them to silicone pretty much as soon as they can. I'll probably do that around here, because the fiberglass insulation is a pain in the butt to crimp and deal with because you can't strip it as easily. But yeah. So there we go. I think I'm probably going to call it a night here, guys. Simply for the fact it is 11 at night, and I've been going at this for 3 hours already. So I will probably finish this up next weekend. Hopefully, get the hot end assembled, installed, and probably start running some wires. So while I clean up, I'll leave the floor open. If anyone has any questions, go ahead. Oh, that sounds so good. Do all the different hot ends, V6, Mosquito, and Dragon, use the same length Bowden tube between the HE mount and clockwork? Yes, they do, I believe, because they all... actually... I don't think they do, because everything is based off of the nozzle. Like if you pull in all the CAD data, everything's based off nozzle being 0, not the top. So based on the length, yeah, the number is different, I believe. So I think in the manual, if you look at the beta manual, I think it has the instructions on how long you have to cut it. And by the way, if you haven't bought one, these little drawers, what is it called? Not Fastenal. Anyways, get yourself one of whatever these things are for storing your screws and put it in front of you when you're working. It makes life so much nicer. Somebody will probably point it out in a minute. No problem, Derek. I work steady afternoons, actually. That's why I don't stream during the week. I work till 11 o'clock at night, every night. So this is, my normal going home time. So it's not really too late for me. Cool dude, which flexible plate should I get? I haven't had issues with the energetic ones. People also like the Wham Bams. There's quite a few that out there. Try and avoid, like, if you ask in the Discord, a lot of people have a lot of experience with different types, but I haven't had any issues with the energetic. You also can make your own. You can buy the magnet from McMaster Car if you're in the US. You can buy just a spring steel plate from, I think, McMaster Car as well. And you can just buy CSI PEI and make your own flex plate. The only real reason to go with like energetic or any of the other suppliers is if you want the textured surface, which I don't bother with. I just run plain PEI. It's easily replaceable. Any chance to start the stream earlier in the Netherlands? You're 8 hours ahead. I start the stream at 8 because that's what time the little guy goes to bed. So, if, you know, I might try and do a daytime stream earlier, like on a holiday or something, or a weekday stream. We'll see. But the 8 o'clock is because that's what time the little guy goes to bed. The beta manual out for anyone? There is no manual at all for anyone in the project, Zen. There is no beta manual. There is, I meant by beta manual, I meant the manual for the 2.2 upgrade to afterburner. So the afterburner beta manual, not the 2.4 beta manual, because there is no 2.4 beta manual. We only have the CAD at the time. What would the print time be for the parts for the V0? The parts for the V0 are, I believe they fit on one plate. So I think it's like 35, 40 hours. It's like you can fit 3 or 4 V0 worth of accent plates on a 300. And then you can do all the other non-accent parts that are critical for function. So you're not like the skirts on one 300 in one go. So I think it's like 30, 35 hours total for V0. There's not a lot of plastic in it. If you're looking for parts, we do have what's called Print It Forward. If you go to the Voron Discord, there's a section called Print It Forward. What Print It Forward is basically helping those that wish to build a Voron who don't have a printer or don't have a printer that can print ABS. And basically there are people that print and sell parts kits of all the printed parts you need to build a functional printer for a very reasonable price. So it's much less than the cost of going to any of the like online services for printed parts. So if you're interested in just getting the parts printed for you, I would look at Printed Forward. So you know the parts are good because they're all printed on a Voron. That's part of Printed Forward. You have to have a functional Voron to print the parts for Printed Forward. Yeah, it started off because a lot of people with a Voron, we recommend ABS. So the reason we recommend ABS is the standard for manufacturing for a reason. Yeah, you can get by with PETG probably with some parts, but my original V1 was PETG, and while I didn't have any failures in parts because I swapped it over to ABS pretty much as soon as I got it up and functional, the moment I switched to ABS, my print quality improved. PETG is a little springy, and especially with an enclosed printer, it's not that it fails at the temperatures that the V2 operates at, if you're printing ABS, for example, it's just it starts to weaken, and when it weakens, parts fail. So that's why we recommend ABS, and that's why Print It Forward is in place, because a lot of people can't print ABS. Okay, so that is it for the night. I hope you guys enjoyed. Anyone who donated, again, thank you. I appreciate any donations because they go to help fund Voron projects and fund the stream. But anyone who just sat and enjoyed listening to me rattle while I built a printer, who participated in the chat, thank you. That's why I do this, because it's better than being down here talking to myself. Here I'm talking to myself, but I have a chat at least. So everyone have a good weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. Wash your hands, be safe, and have a great one.